For those that were asking, yes, we are simulcasting this on a variety of Facebook channels, including the People's Revolution and the Milwaukee Turners at Turner Hall, Facebook, and others. You can watch it there. And yes to those who are asking to record. Okay, and we are going to begin now. Thank you all for joining us today for our presentation and panel entitled What's Wrong with the Wauwatosa Police Department? Welcome and thank you too. My name is Emilio Dottore. I'm the Executive Director of the Milwaukee Turners and a proud member of the Milwaukee chapter of the National Lawyers Guild, who is hosting this event, and I'll be your host this afternoon. If you're interested in joining us for our next NLG general meeting, that will be April 6th at 5:30 p.m., send any letters of interest to milwaukeenlg@gmail.com. The word Milwaukee is spelled out. I'd also like to take a minute to thank our community partners, of course, the National Lawyers Guild of Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Turners, Rid Racism Milwaukee, the People's Revolution Milwaukee, the ACLU of Wisconsin Milwaukee chapter, TOSA Together, All of Us or None, Breaking Barriers, Indivisible TOSA, and Veterans for Peace, Chapter 102 in Milwaukee. I invite all of you to ask any questions you may have during Attorney Motley and Ramon and Sedan's presentations in the chat on the side or in the various Facebook groups. These spaces are being curated by Professor Samina Mullah, Jody Malamed, and Tamika Vukovic, and we'll get to those questions. If you ask a question on Facebook, it'll be shared here in the Zoom. And so we'll start. All over the country, Americans are wrestling with the suffering and trauma caused by racist and all too frequently fatal interactions between institutions like law enforcement and civilians. Some people who seem beholden to our status quo of white supremacy and the infallibility of law enforcement condemn the patriotism, morality, and legality of even questioning the actions of the government or police during the aftermath of these events. Point in case, the Milwaukee National Lawyers Guild Facebook group was taken down just last night by Facebook because numerous people complained about the event you're currently attending, implying and reporting that this is somehow hate speech to even have this conversation. So it is my pleasure today to be joined by these three incredible Wisconsinites who have committed and demonstrable histories fighting for equity and justice. We'll begin with Attorney Motley, who will present her explosive documentation of rampant abuse of power, corruption, and many legal issues in policing in the Wauwatosa Police Department. This includes ghost arrests, fake tickets, compiling lists of people because they are protesters, officers holding racist Martin Luther King Day parties, and more. And after her presentation, she'll be joined on panel by criminal defense attorney Ramon Valdez of the National Lawyers Guild Milwaukee and Sedan Smith of the People's Revolution and Breaking Barriers Incorporated, where they will discuss their experiences with the WPD. So I'd like to introduce Attorney Kimberley Motley. Attorney Motley has been a practicing attorney and litigator since 2003 and has worked in Afghanistan since 2008. She's a founder of Motley Legal Services and co-founder of Motley Consulting International. She's worked as a justice advisor with the U.S. Department of State in Afghanistan and as a Wisconsin public defender. She and the NLG Milwaukee are interested in pursuing U.S. Department of Justice investigation of the Wauwatosa PD. And you can read more about Attorney Motley on her website, which we're sharing in the chat on the side. And also contributions may be made to Attorney Motley's nonprofit, the Justness Project. That link will also be on the side. And I encourage you to pick up a copy of her fantastic and riveting book, Lawless, A Lawyer's Unrelenting Fight for Justice in a War Zone. Without further ado, I am turning over the helm to Attorney Motley.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me, and Emilio, for your wonderful introduction. I'm really excited to be here to talk about some of the issues that I have uncovered in Wauwatosa. I hope that I want this to not just be a session where I'm, sharing information with you, but also I want to teach you what you can do and what within the Wauwatosa community, whether you live there or not, we all have the power to help make change. And I hope we can do that together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. It's interesting because I wasn't planning on starting this way, but this photograph was just shared with me. This is a picture that Wauwatosa Police Department actually put up an hour ago, taken at, I understand, Longfellow Middle School. And as you can see, they're toting that this is what March was National Reading Month. And I don't know who this is, but I know what this is behind her is a Blue Lives Matter flag. At Longfellow Middle School, which is a public school in Wauwatosa. I think there's an issue with that. But I find that to be very interesting. And as Emilio said, it's also interesting that literally within hours, this talk was actually flagged with Facebook and taken down. Who knows what, who knows why, but certainly we're going to get to the bottom of that. Trying to stifle freedom of speech because you don't like what people are saying is something that I've experienced in authoritarian regimes that I've worked in. I worked in Cuba. I was arrested by the government because I was representing someone for freedom of speech. I worked in Afghanistan. I've been arrested there. I've had a grenade thrown in my office because I was representing women and young girls who were being sold into slavery and as child brides. I've represented politicians in Malaysia, the former deputy prime minister, where I was almost deported from the country because, again, I was representing a political leader who was fighting for democracy. So I find it disappointing, but also in a weird way familiar, some of the issues that I've been dealing with Wauwatosa. I know I've been working with a lot of very interesting and strong activists, particularly people within the People's Revolution, who have literally been putting themselves out there on the line. They've been targeted, they've been surveyed, they've been defamed, as I have, by persons within the Wauwatosa positions of power. And we're fighting back. And just like I fight against terrorists in Afghanistan or other countries, I have no problem with fighting against people in Wauwatosa who I believe think that they're above the rule of law and are using their positions as a means, as a weapon to abuse the powerless. And we will continue this fight. So I wanted to first start with my PowerPoint slide. Let's see. Let's share my screen. Before I get started, I want to show something to you that I found very interesting. Wauwatosa, this whole thing started with, I've only been really working on this case since June of last year, and we've uncovered a lot within a very short time period. While working in Wauwatosa, I've gotten to know a little bit about the local politics, how the processes work and things like that. And so I've become very familiar with the City of Wauwatosa website. And I want to show you guys sort of, let's just go there. City of Wauwatosa. This summer, there were a lot of protests that happened in Wauwatosa. And basically, the police, I believe, overstepped their bounds in dealing with the protesters. And I believe they violated a lot of constitutional rights. This is the government portal page. And so I want to go to the meeting portal because there's something very interesting that you all need to see. Full calendar. I want to show you how these meetings normally go. We'll go to 2020. Let's see. All right. So back October 7th through the 12th, there were curfews that were implemented in Wauwatosa, I believe unlawfully, that basically they implemented those curfews because they were saying that they were in fear of the Alvin Cole decision and how people would react to that decision. And so we were actually fighting a case in court, federal court against that. So typically with these meetings in Wauwatosa, it's run by the Common Council, which is their local governing body, and they have meetings in the city. So let's look at September 1, 2020, for instance. They have meetings, they have an agenda. We know that from this meeting, for instance, usually what happens is, agenda September 1, 2020, the meeting's at 7:30 p.m., right? You see that? So let's go down. Normally, the meeting agenda items are updated. This was updated at 4:18 p.m. on September 1st, 2020. So a couple of hours before each meeting, usually they update the agenda, and this is something that's supposed to be part of public records. Let's see. And then let's go to one other one. Again, the Common Council is a local governing body in Wauwatosa. They meet, I believe it is twice a month, usually on the 1st and the 15th, I want to say. So here's another meeting, September 15th, 2020. Agenda outline, September 15th, 2020. Again, 7:30 p.m. You can see it's updated at 5:13 p.m. on the same day, September 15th. One thing that's interesting is that after these protests were happened in Wauwatosa, the Common Council convened a special meeting to try to vote on the legality of the protests. So the protests went from October 7th through October 12th, right? It was for 5 days. And so on October 13th, the Common Council had a meeting, and here's the agenda outline. The meeting was set on October 13th at 5:30 p.m., right? So let's look at when this was updated. This was a special meeting to vote that the curfew was legal, or to vote on whether or not the Common Council approves the curfew. So this meeting was October 13th, 5:30 p.m., one day after the curfew. For some reason, this agenda was updated 3 days after the meeting on October 16th at 11:45 a.m. Why is the city of Wauwatosa changing its agenda for a meeting 3 days after it happens? That is not in compliance with open records law of Wauwatosa, and we need to get to the bottom of that, and we will. So let's talk about more specifics. Let's see. And here we go. Motley's Law, fighting for justness in Wauwatosa. I always talk about justness, and what justness is to me is fighting systems from the inside out. You know, that's what I do. I fight for systems and fight for people's rights from the inside out, using the laws in the ways that I believe they were intended to be used. Motley's Law is something that is trademarked, and basically it's an immersive practice of law which uses techniques that takes into consideration cultural behavior, but also cultural, environmental, regional, and other factors. So it's essentially fighting the systems from the inside out, which is what we've been doing in Wauwatosa. We've been using the law in the way that I believe it was intended to be used. My introduction into Wauwatosa really happened because of 3 young men who died way too soon and were killed by Officer Joseph Mensah. Alvin Cole was shot and killed by Officer Mensah on February 2nd, 2020. Jay Anderson on June 23rd, 2016. And Antonio Gonzalez on September 15th, 2015. Officer Joseph Mensah is a Wauwatosa officer who fired his weapon 19 times in a 5-year time period and killed these 3 young men. He has never been criminally prosecuted for doing this. And I believe he should be, and we'll get into that. In order to understand where we're going, we really need to understand the history of Wauwatosa. So I want to first start out talking about Wauwatosa in 1989. In 1989, the city of Wauwatosa hired a consultancy firm to conduct a study on the police operations. And based on that study, part of what they found is that 17 officers, 17 positions at least, should be eliminated within the Wauwatosa Police Department. And they also determined that the then chief at that point in time, not Chief Weber, but the prior chief, he needs to go too. And so that happened in January of 1989. Now, based on this study that was paid for by the city of Wauwatosa, there was a lot of pushback from the police department. And based on this study, despite the fact that the city of Wauwatosa taxpayers paid for this, their 17 officers were not eliminated from the city of Wauwatosa. But shortly thereafter, the police chief, it was found out, the former police chief was living outside the district. And based off of that, they used that to, I believe, pressure him to leave his position. And so this is another article that was in the Wauwatosa Times, which Wauwatosa Times no longer exists. The reason why I'm showing you this is because it's important to understand where Wauwatosa was and how much has not changed within that time period. Based off of this is what opened the police chief position in 1989. And then the Police and Fire Commission also supported wholeheartedly the Wauwatosa Police Department. Now, in 1989, 1990, during this study, and because of a whistleblower, what came to light is that in 88, 89, and possibly 90, there were parties called Martin Luther King parties that were thrown and attended to by Wauwatosa police officers. So these parties were racially divisive parties that was thrown by John Bosevich, who became the number 2 of Wauwatosa for, I believe, over 10 years. And basically, these parties, they would advertise them by showing, from what I read, they showed like a picture of a suspect, and they used that to advertise, Wauwatosa's police officers and people coming to these racist parties. People, from what was reported, wore blackface. There were racially divisive symbols that were present at these parties. And these things came out that this was occurring under the former chief of Wauwatosa. And because of that, there was another investigation that was launched while they were trying to find a new Wauwatosa police chief. You can see in 1990 that the number 1 most read story in Wauwatosa was the racism charges against the Wauwatosa Police Department. You see that racism charges hit police department, shaking up city. And this was the number 1 story in Wauwatosa Times for 1990. Interestingly enough, in 7 months prior, Chief Weber was hired to become the chief of Wauwatosa, and he was touted as a problem solver. They did a nationwide search, and they found him. And so he came in with the lens that they were saying to clean up the Wauwatosa Police Department. Instead of cleaning it up, what Police Chief Weber did, while the racist Martin Luther King Party investigation was happening, he promoted the guy that was hosting these parties, Sergeant John Bosevich, and this is Special Order number 477, signed by Chief Weber, that says that he promoted him as acting lieutenant. And that was during the investigation into these racist parties, which it's indisputable that they happened. They happened. It's indisputable that John Bosevich also hosted these parties. And according to this email or this special order, Sergeant Bosevich was to replace Lieutenant James Zalewski, who, by the way, also attended these parties while he was on vacation. Who knows what was going on now? And so this happened in the midst of this investigation, that the new police chief, it's a clear message, I believe, into what his thinking is. Now, while this was going on, the whistleblower, John Cutts, who basically was the one that told the Fire and Police Commission about these racist parties, he was getting harassed, and he was getting racist emails, or excuse me, not emails, but letters. For instance, he basically was getting letters about calling him a snitch, that he should drop dead, talking about his family, talking about Black people, using the N-word. And also, while this was going, the whistleblower, John Cutts, he basically said even Police Chief Weber was harassing him. Now, Police Chief Weber was a new police chief. And according to Cutts, the chief asked him about his relationship with his attorney and questioned him if he was getting his money's worth. Giving, in my opinion, giving the clear message that John Cutts was not welcome. So you have 2 things going on. You have a new police chief that essentially looks like he's supporting people who are throwing and attending these racist parties. You have a police chief, according to the whistleblower, who feels is being harassed by the police chief. And also you have this all on the back of the study that was conducted that says 17 positions should be eliminated, which I don't believe that happened. The whistleblower actually wrote a complaint against the chief. And I think I heard him say, and I'm going to have to look this up, that he's never been complained against. Well, that's not true. And so this is a article that was in the newspaper that said that there was complaints against police chiefs, specifically from the whistleblower, but the Police and Fire Commission, they shoved their head in the sand, as they have done, as we've seen recently, and didn't do anything about it. Now, if you want to know what happened with the Martin Luther King parties, essentially, originally what happened is that there was another acting police chief, Fred Basting, who basically put, I believe, all the officers on suspension without pay. Many, if not all the officers, they appealed that decision and to the Police and Fire Commission, and put in a complaint with the Police and Fire Commission. And basically, the Police and Fire Commission said it is freedom of speech, and they didn't do anything. Just like this Police and Fire Commission is not really doing much anything, in my opinion. And so as a result, there was really no consequence to the officers. Certainly everyone has the right to freedom of speech, but I don't know what job you have the right to use somebody else's pictures to invite them to racist parties. And the Police and Fire Commission Wauwatosa in 1989 did absolutely nothing about that. Let's look at Wauwatosa present day. Why does this matter? This matters because what happened in the past has seeped into present day. So there were 13 officers that they determined were either hosting or participating in these Martin Luther King parties. Most, if not all, of these 13 officers became part of Wauwatosa Police Department's upper echelon. They became the supervisors, the managers, the number 2 that ran the department. And the present day officers of Wauwatosa presumably have learned from some of these officers. And so that's why it matters. So Wauwatosa present day, let's look at the data. We know that Wauwatosa is a city where about 5% of the city population are Black identified. And this nice little chart was made by my friend, Dr. DeLazio Parson. And so she crunched the numbers for me. We've been able to receive data for arrests and traffic stops in Wauwatosa. What we know is that even though Wauwatosa is a city that's about 13 square miles long, that has about a 5% Black identified population, that between 2015 through 2017, approximately 64% of the traffic stops were Black identified people. 64%. That is an absurdly high number of police stops for a city that has only 5% of a Black identified population. In addition to that, we know that in 2018, that in Wauwatosa, 83% of the arrests were Black people. Again, in a city with only 5% of the population is Black identified. That is an absurdly high number. I would argue that it's impossible to make the argument that people are not being targeted. To me, this shows that there is a targeting of Black and brown people by the Wauwatosa Police Department. That is what this data shows to me, just looking at it. And I think there needs to be more investigation into this by way of a federal civil rights probe. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard about Akil Carter. Akil Carter, this case is actually currently pending in Wauwatosa's Eastern District Court, and he's being represented by an amazing attorney, Joy Bertram, who is representing him. And actually, she just deposed Chief Weber on February 25th of this year, and he said some really interesting things. But anyway, Akil Carter is an African-American 18-year-old person. He was, at least in 2018, and he was riding in the back seat of his grandmother's vehicle, who is white. So she was in the car. There was another white female that was in the passenger side. And according to the filings, the Wauwatosa police officers stopped this car and then took him out of the car and drew guns on him, pointed their weapon at Akil Carter, and said something to the effect of, they got a report that there was some illegal activity, right? His grandmother was sitting in the front seat, and she was telling him, this is my grandson. Now, they're currently being sued for this, but this is one of the things that the Wauwatosa Police Department wants to keep hush-hush that really shouldn't. But this is, Akil would have been counted in that 2018 arrest data as being part of that 83% population. And so here are some links to articles about Akil and about his situation. This matter is currently pending with the Eastern District. As I understand, according to the filings, when this was originally filed, even though the Wauwatosa Police Department said that they got a tip where someone called them about this, there was illegal activity, at the time of the filing, I believe it was filed in 2018, they weren't able to produce who actually called them. And we'll see if they're ever able to produce that person, whoever this ghost person is, but we'll see. Now I want to show you a video about sort of what happened, a little bit of what happened this summer. I think I have to, hold on. How do I do this? I think I have to take off my AirPods so you can hear it. So let me play this. Let's see.
The goddamn National Guard, that's bad. That's how they think of us. That's what they think of us. Nobody's doing nothing disruptive. It's a peaceful mind. Spike was thrown in front of our cars. They grabbing my daughters out the car and other protesters on our way. Look at, we was on our way home. And they told me, get the F off this car. And they pulled my hair. And once they pulled my hair, they started punching me in my face. I must have got jumped on by 5. My eyes are blackened. I had a big old bump on my head. He said that no one was hurt, but I was hurt. I'm telling them that I'm an elderly woman. I'm handicapped, y'all should not. I don't care. I say I'm Tracy Cole. They said, I don't give a damn. Like, how dare you say this to me? This is stuff that y'all took my baby. Now y'all trying to take me out too. On the car, I'm smashing it. Get out now! Get out! Get on the ground! Get down! We did something. Please absolutely tell the truth and accurately report that. Antonio, another soul lifted. They ain't never got suspended or went back to the word of him, a matter of valor, where they do that at. He shot a 5 times in the head, one up in the shoulder. He was just sleeping in the car, woke up to law and order. Where is the justice? Taking Jay Anderson from his daughter. Justice, Wisconsin. Look what the cops came to do. Justice, Wisconsin. Just to abuse us more.
That video was created by Bullhorn Films, who I'm really appreciative, hold on, that they did that. And that was a demonstration of some of the force that happened in Wauwatosa from October 7th through the 12th of that curfew. Now, with regards to legally protesting in Wauwatosa, which is everyone's constitutional right to do, we know that even though that video was created October 7th, July 14th, this is an email that was sent to various members of the Wauwatosa Police Department, including Barry Weber, Brian Scornia is named, where they're saying, here is the new updated list. There are around 40 people. This is July 14th. So they've created a list of protesters and they were updating it July 14th. To me, this shows that they were surveying protesters, but why? Now, keep in mind that Officer Mensah was not suspended until July 15th. And so this, you know, we've obviously are gonna do an open records to get who's on this list, who are they surveying? And we know that they were tracking and updating the list on July 14th, which is concerning because why are you tracking who's protesting? It is your constitutional right to protest. You have a legal right to protest. And that's what people have been doing and trying to do to ask for accountability. Now, in addition to this, we know that other abuses of power by the Wauwatosa Police Department, I put in a lot of open records requests on behalf of the Alvin Cole, Jay Anderson, and Antonio Gonzalez family. And one of those open records requests, I was asking for Joseph Mensah's emails, which they didn't want to give to me. But instead, what they did is they charged me $1,320 to get his emails. So on the right is the receipt for those emails, $1,320.73. I paid for that. Now on the left is an email from December 7th, 2016, where Detective John Milwaukee is the president of the Wauwatosa Peace Officers Association. So basically, he's writing to Captain Sharpie, and I take this as they don't want to give Joseph Mensah's personnel file. According to this email, John Milwaukee is saying that he spoke with Attorney Kimberley. Now, Attorney Kimberley was the attorney that represented Joseph Mensah, and he's also been the attorney that has represented the Peace Officers, Wauwatosa Peace Officers Association, I understand, for many things. And according to Detective John Milwaukee, he's saying that he's being advised by Attorney Kimberley that trying to fight the release of personnel files is a waste of time and money. And that instead, how many departments combat the issue is by charging a high price to fill those requests. I think $1,320.73 is a high price. That is unlawful according to Wisconsin law. You cannot charge high prices on open records requests that you don't like. And that's exactly what they did. And according to this email by John Milwaukee, he claims to have been advised to do this by Attorney Kimberley. And if this is not accurate, then if I were Attorney Kimberley, frankly, what I would do is sue Wauwatosa for defamation, because that's something that, as an attorney, I wouldn't want to advise my clients to behave in an unlawful manner. But as far as I know, that has not happened. In Wauwatosa, there's also the issue of fabricated arrests. And so we know that I did an open records request myself, as well as many journalists, and I believe the ACLU also did an open records request asking, at least I asked for any arrests, booking information, tickets of anyone who has been arrested in relation from like August 13th until October 13th. I believe I put the parameters. What I received back were over 40 fake arrests, that fabricated arrests that did not happen. And so if you look on the left here, Jackie Bogenberger, this is a real arrest, right? She shouldn't have been arrested. First of all, she should not have been arrested for, constitutionally, peacefully protesting. But I just wanted to show you the comparison. So on the left, you have the name, the address, people are assigned a booking number, people are assigned a case number, and then the charge is spelled out. On the right is a fake arrest of David Bowen. This never happened, but you can see it's very similar. So you have the name, you have a booking number, you have a case number. And according to Wauwatosa, they told the journalists, in writing, of course, not in person, because they've been very, mum's the word when it comes to the media these days. They're just typing in, things to journalists instead of actually answering questions verbally. But they said this is an internal documentation that they have. Well, if it's internal, then why did I get it as part of my open records request? I didn't ask Wauwatosa, please give me all the data for your fake arrests. I asked for real arrest information. And as part of that dump, and again, they dumped this to me and other journalists the day after the Capitol riots, I found over 40 fabricated arrest records of people, including David Bowen. So the question is, why is this important? This is important because obviously with the data in Wauwatosa, it's bad enough that Black people have to worry about real arrests, right? But does this inform an officer's decision when they stop you? We know based on the data that African Americans are stopped more than 2 minutes longer than white people in Wauwatosa. When they take your license plate and they go back to their car and do their check on a person, does this type of crap show up and you just don't know that it exists? So this is something that should be deleted, eliminated, and the Wauwatosa Police Department and the city of Wauwatosa is refusing to erase fabricated arrests that they have given to people who have asked for real arrests. So if they're saying this is just part of their internal system, they're getting confused by their own fabricated arrests and giving this to people as part of open records documents. And I believe because Chief Weber has been the chief for over 30 years, there may be thousands of these in the system. There may be thousands. I encourage everybody, every Black and brown person who's ever been stopped in Wauwatosa, or even if you haven't been stopped, I would put in an open records request if I were you to see if your name is in the system in any way, shape, or form, because I think that's really important. In addition to this, we know that with the protests that police were unlawfully confiscating people's cell phones. Now, in order to confiscate people's cell phones, there needs to be some level of probable cause to confiscate these cell phones. And so for the vast majority of people that were arrested, they're arrested for non-criminal tickets, just like a ticket you would get for speeding. They're getting arrested. And so the story of a lot of people is that they're arrested, their hands were tied very tightly, their phones were taken away, they were taken to a police station, and then they were made to talk to the FBI. A lot of people whose phones were taken away, they received them back, and they reported that their phones were acting funny. Well, in my open records request, we received this, that if you get a warrant, this is from Officer Martin Keck of the Wauwatosa Police Department. If you get a warrant, I will dump the phones. Worst case scenario, we can't get into the phones, but we will be able to identify the phone number through the SIM card. If they are taking SIM cards out of people's phones who have not consented to a search, then that is unlawful. And I believe that's what happened. And I know that the Wauwatosa Police has been asked point blank, did you take out people's SIM cards, and they have not, to my understanding, answered that question. And I think if your phone was taken away by the Wauwatosa Police Department, they may possibly have taken out your SIM card without your consent, and that is an unlawful search. Now, I want to talk about, I believe this is Detective Timothy Warren of the Wauwatosa Police Department. In that video, Detective Timothy Warren is also the person that's spraying mace or whatever is in that liquid bottle into someone's face directly. And I don't know if you saw the guy kind of jump back and go on the floor and kind of holding his face. Well, this is a person that was arrested as part of the curfew. So with regards to this person, we'll call him Kenny. So Kenny actually was working that day in Wauwatosa. I mean, not in Wauwatosa, but he was working that day on, I believe this was October 8th. And so he comes home from work. Again, he is a Tosa resident. When he's in the car, his mom's in the car, his mom's boyfriend is in the car, as well as his friend. And so they're driving up North Avenue, because he actually lives on North Avenue in Wauwatosa. And while they're coming up, all of a sudden they see a crowd of people just running towards them. And while they're sitting in their car, he's trying to go home. It's 7:30 p.m. All of a sudden their car is rammed to the side, right? And he ultimately is arrested. As you can see, he's sitting down on the curb. This was captured by a lot of news media, and he's wearing his uniform. He's a security guard, and that's what he was where he was working that day, as a security guard. He tells the officers that he was working as a security guard that day, and they say it doesn't matter. They don't care, and they still arrest him, even though he lives right up the street. And he said, "My house is right there." So they arrest him and they take him away. This is captured by Wauwatosa, by Channel 58. This is the vehicle that was rammed by the armored cars for him going home. This is what the vehicle on the right ended up looking like when they went to the tow lot that is contracted, as I understand, with the city of Wauwatosa. He got his phones taken away. He was still made to talk to the FBI, and he was still given a ridiculous ticket of $1,321 by the contracted city attorney, George Schimel. Now, George Schimel is the current contracted city attorney for Wauwatosa. He has been working there for almost 20 years. He received this job, as I understand it, because his father had the job before him. Now, I don't think for city sort of contracts that you're supposed to just inherit a job. I thought there was supposed to be an open tender, but apparently that hasn't happened with Schimel. And this is an email that I sent to Alan Kestner, who is the attorney and city attorney for the city of Wauwatosa. And I asked for the employment contract of attorney George Schimel. This was sent on January 30th. To date, I don't have it. Attorney Schimel says he doesn't know where the contract is. He doesn't know how much they're paying him. I'm going to try to have somebody find it. And now over 3 months or 2 months later, he still can't find it. And this is the person that is deciding on whether or not people's ticket should go to court, is attorney George Schimel, who got his job because his daddy had his job before him. Now, what's really important to know is that with these tickets, what do they look like? All right. And these tickets in and of themselves, they are also unlawful. So as you can see that people are getting tickets in the amount of $1,321. You can see that. And that's based off violating emergency order because they violated curfew. According to Wisconsin statute 323.28, the maximum fine they're supposed to give at most is $200. So this fine is unlawful, $1,321. And I've communicated that to the city of Wauwatosa and also contracted city attorney George Schimel. And he has told me, oh, we'll just change it in court. That's not how it works. According to the Constitution, everyone has the right to notification. And so we are going to court now on these tickets. And as of now, I have over 100 tickets that I've been representing. This is also another lawsuit. let's talk about TOSA today. And these are all the notices of intent letters that I served, mostly upon TOSA, the mayor, and the chief, as well as other jurisdictions, with regards to the behavior of the police during the protests. So let's look at the different cases and actions and state law claims that we have going on now. So we had Police and Fire Commission complaints against Mensa for Alvin Cole, Jay Anderson, and Tony Gonzalez. That's now done. Obviously, former Wauwatosa police officer Joseph Mensa no longer works as a Wauwatosa police officer, which is good, but he works as a deputy sheriff with the city of Waukesha now. We have a writ of mandamus. We've been suing TOSA since October 1st for not giving us our documents that we have asked lawfully for in our open records. And we've been doing this since October 1st. There's been an enormous amount of time and resources that have been put into Wauwatosa just for them to act right. And because I believe this is the first time that they've ever been made to be accountable. And so because of that, they don't know what to do. So also Talavia Cole, Alvin Cole's sister, her phone was taken for 22 days. We had to go to court to fight to get her phone back. We won that. We found over 43 fabricated arrests and bookings. We've served over 150 notices of intent to sue. We have I represent over 110 people for non-criminal tickets for people peacefully protesting. In addition to that, we have a special prosecutor hearing where we're trying to get the judge to find probable cause to charge Joseph Mensa with regards to the Jay Anderson Jr. shooting. That's a very important hearing. If the court agrees with us, we believe that there's probable cause to charge Officer Joseph Mensa with shooting and killing Jay Anderson on June 23rd, 2016. And this is the first time we're presenting evidence, witnesses, and testimony. Chief Barry Weber has tried to fight his subpoena and he lost. And so on May 4th, the judge says he has to come, basically said that he has to come and testify. So on May 4th, he's one of the witnesses that will come and testify for that hearing. Federal claims in the Eastern District. And again, this is just really, a lot of this is literally from July 2020 until present. We have a mass action lawsuit that we're representing 50 plaintiffs, including the People's Revolution as an unincorporated entity, because I believe there was excessive force. I believe there was targeting. I believe a lot of these tickets were unlawful. I believe there was a lot of illegal things that happened because based on the actions of particularly the mayor of the city of Wauwatosa, as well as the police headed by Police Chief Weber in Wauwatosa. So we filed that mass action lawsuit, and that's currently in the Eastern District. Also, there's another protester who I'm not representing, but another very competent and great attorney is representing, Attorney Michael Sterling. It's the Paige Radke complaint. This is also an Eastern District, that's 21, and this is the case number. And also we talked about Attorney Joy Bertram, who's representing Akil Carter, and that is currently pending. And all of these cases, I think the foundation of all these cases is that the Wauwatosa Police Department overstepping their bound, abusing their power. And that is, and also with our case, I believe that the way that the mayor enacted the curfew and enacted the emergency proclamation was unlawful. So that's also what we're fighting. Now, with regards to the Police and Fire Commission, I'm showing you this so that you know there is one vacancy that's open, and that's Dana Cici. So according to this, there's a 5-year term for the Police and Fire Commission. So her term is up on April 30th of 2020. So in 29 days, her term is up. And it was just advertised that they're looking for a new person to fill that position. However, Dominic Leone, who's the president of the Wauwatosa Police and Fire, I think, in my opinion, I don't think he should be the president of the Wauwatosa Police and Fire Commission. Now, this is what's odd to me. According to the term limits, it's 5-year terms, right? Now, Dominic Leone, who was a former Wauwatosa police officer, and by the way, during the Martin Luther King parties of 1988, 1989, and 1988, Dominic Leone was a Wauwatosa police officer. Now, I don't know if he participated in those parties, but I do know that he was an officer during that time period. And I believe also that he was aware that Officer Mensah shot and killed the 3 people within the 5-year time period. I believe he was aware of that. And there's many Common Council members who I have heard say, we didn't know anything about that. Well, I believe that the president of the Fire and Police Commission knew about it, or at least he should have known about it. And also the Police and Fire Commission members should have known about it. Now, why I'm showing you this is because according to this, there's a 5-year term. He started in May 18th of 2011. So if there's a 5-year term, I don't know, 5 plus 211 should mean this should have been up in 2016, right? So if you count 10, in theory, he should be up too on April 30th of 2021. Why did he have a 6-year term as his first term? When did this change? And so I believe that his term should be up, and I believe he definitely should be replaced, because the danger here is that the Police and Fire Commission are the ones that are going to be the main people and the main decision makers to pick the next police chief. And to have a former police officer, Wauwatosa, who I believe has not been a great leader within the Police and Fire Commission, it should not be on them. And definitely he needs to be replaced. And I believe that his term should reflect that at least his end date should be April 30th of 2021. This should be corrected to April 30th, 2016, because I don't know why it doesn't say, you can have 5+ years. It says 5 years, period. Why did he have 6 years as his first term? And when did that change? Now, also with regards to the Fire and Police Commission, while this whole matter has been pending, they have a lot of power that I think is an issue. Now, police and fire commissioners are appointed by the mayor. They are volunteer citizens that the mayor handpicks to put in that seat. And it's something that they can use to pad their resume, makes them look good, I guess, in the community, makes them look good for jobs and things like that. So there's a lot of benefits that they get, even though they're not being paid. And so what we do know is that while this thing this should be 2020, for some reason, when we put in the complaint against Mensah with the Fire and Police Commission in July of 2020, the Police and Fire Commission decided to change their rules and say that a citizen complaint can only be reported from 120 days of the alleged incident. This was a new rule that they voted on September 17th, 2020, right? It never happened before that. For some reason, they decided to change that while we were complaining about Mensah. And since the fall of last year of 2020, there have been several complaints that have been filed. We filed Antonio Gonzalez complaint with the Police and Fire Commission. They just dismissed it. They did zero investigation. Sonora Larson, this should be 2020. Sonora Larson, who's an activist who was out there, she filed a complaint on behalf of, she was the person that was maced in the face by Detective Tim Warren. She was standing next to him, and she got some mace on her or whatever was in that liquid. And so she filed a complaint with the Police and Fire Commission. They didn't do anything about that. They didn't do any investigation. All they did is say, okay, Wauwatosa Police Department, you investigate it. You investigate your own officer. So you know what happened with that. Jacob Pick, who was punched in the face by Wauwatosa police officer on October 14th, he filed a complaint. Nothing was done about that by the Police and Fire Commission. Andrew Aaron, who is my current client, we filed a complaint. The Police and Fire Commission didn't do anything about that. All these complaints, except for Antonio Gonzalez, which they dismissed just straight out of hand, they had them referred to the Wauwatosa police officers to investigate, which is a complete conflict of interest. And that's why the Police and Fire Commission exists, is because there's supposed to be a separation between the police department and the Police and Fire Commission. But they really don't want to do, in my opinion, much of anything, but just ride on that position, put it on their resume, and do nothing and not be accountable for anything. So I think it's, if they just wanted, if they don't want to, serve in their position appropriately, and they've said throughout this process a million times how they don't get paid for being in their position, or the mayor has at least said it a lot of times, then we need to get citizens in there who are willing to do the work and who are willing to hold the Wauwatosa Police Department accountable. Because in my opinion, they're not. And to me, what the Police and Fire Commission of Wauwatosa is doing today, which is very little of anything, looks very familiar to what the Police and Fire Commission did in 1988 and 1989 with regards to these Martin Luther King parties. I have been told also that the president, Dominic Leone, sent a communication to the city of Wauwatosa saying that the Police and Fire Commission will not be showing up at any more government affairs committee meetings, which is absurd. All these meetings are by Zoom. They have a duty to report things, but for them to say that they're not going to show up anymore for the rest of the year, that just seems very strange to me. Now, also with regards to the Police and Fire Commission, Chief Weber is also a member of this commission. And according to their website, which I just downloaded this, say, the Police and Fire Commission, his end date is November 7th, 2024. He's retiring on June 1st. I don't know, and the mayor can appoint somebody to the Police and Fire Commission. So does this mean that he's going to remain on the Police and Fire Commission? Is this going to be the person that the mayor appoints to that role in April? And I think we need to find out more information about that. Now, what happened? Now, there's a lot of things that Wauwatosa has open that they just haven't done anything about. First of all, they're doing the new police chief, and that's led by, again, by the Police and Fire Commission. President Dominic Leone is the head of the Police and Fire Commission, and they just put out this ridiculous survey that they wanted the public to do, which I did, in order to figure out what's important to you in a new chief. It was like a survey with 16 points and rank them. That's the survey. There wasn't even like what else is important to you? And like each thing was like a paragraph. So it was a ridiculous survey, and they keep saying that this is citizen-led, but it's in my opinion, it's very poorly citizen-led, and I don't think they're doing it right. And I think it's on purpose based on their history. Also, what happened to the high-value target investigation? Detective Lewandowski sent an email to another colleague of his within the Wauwatosa Police Department, where he named the current Wauwatosa Police Mayor as a high-value target. Mayor McBride said such actions can only drive a wedge between the Wauwatosa Police Department and the people it serves. They claimed that there was an investigation that was happening, but we don't know what's going on with that investigation. What happened? And where is the Wauwatosa Police Department annual report? They're supposed to give out an annual report every year. It is now April 1st. Usually that's done at the end of December, beginning of January. They are the most financed institution for the city of Wauwatosa. Where is that annual report? It used to be on their website, their prior annual reports, but since this whole process, they've disappeared. This is the high value target email or PowerPoint that was created. I'm sorry, I'm going fast because I don't want to take away time from Sedan and Attorney Valdez. But this is basically what it looks like, where Mayor McBride was, they didn't like the fact that he was talking to, people part of the People's Revolution, me, Attorney Vishny, and they used this as a means to supposedly target him. And this is very dangerous, not just because of McBride, but because of every citizen. If the Wauwatosa Police Department doesn't like what you're saying, can they then target you? Can they try to find probable cause for a crime? That's a problem. What can you do? You can help push for a civil rights probe. That's really important. Ask questions and demand answers. You're entitled to it. Find out what's going on with the new hire for police chief. Find out what's going on with the new fire and police appointment that's appointed by the mayor. Find out what's going on with the high value target investigation. Also, we have our first trial, April 21st, curfew trial at 5:45. We have our final hearing for the J. Anderson Jr. shooting at May 4th, 2021. Federal Civil Rights Pro, I think, is really important. I'm giving you all this information so that you can see the justification for Federal Civil Rights Pro. There's a lot of illegal, unlawful, improper behavior, abuse of power that the Wauwatosa Police Department has engaged in under the failed leadership of Chief Barry Weber for the last 30 years. I think it's important that we take a deep dive into that. What you can do also is you can please support the Justness Project. This stuff is not free. And every filing that we have, that costs money. And so we rely a lot on donators, on donations. Please feel free to go to the website. I just wrote a book, Lawless. Because of COVID, I wasn't able to go on my American book tour. But what I'm offering is, if anyone's interested, if you want to give a donation, you can buy the book. You have to buy it from me, basically, and pay $50, and all profits will go towards the Justness Project. So thank you for your time. Here's my contact details. I'm sorry, Sedan and Ramon, but I will turn it over to you.
That was incredibly revealing. I mean, it's stunned to hear all of this stuff, and we're going to have an opportunity now for our additional panelists to weigh in a bit more briefly on what they've seen. We'll start with Attorney Ramon Valdez, who'll speak for 5+ minutes, and then Sedan Smith will speak for 5+ minutes, and then we'll open up to the many questions. And we've been receiving a ton of questions and a ton of support and love for you, Attorney Motley. It's my pleasure to introduce Attorney Ramon Valdez of Brown Buffalo Law. He's been practicing for 34+ years, concentrating practice in criminal defense. He's licensed in both Kansas and Wisconsin. And he's conducted well over 300 trials in his 34 years, jury trials, court trials, hundreds of evidentiary trials. He was originally inspired to become a criminal defense lawyer because of his experiences as a young man growing up right here in Milwaukee, where he was arrested for a variety of reasons, such as jaywalking, rioting, and criminal damage to a squad car. And all of these charges were no processed by the Milwaukee County DA's office. He is very firmly committed to war in the trenches, the frontline battle where the state has almost unlimited resources to throw at criminal defenses. And he has dedicated his career to ensuring those individuals who find themselves being criminally prosecuted have an effective voice in the courtroom. And he's here right now to tell us some of his experiences in Wauwatosa. Ramon.
Thank you, Emilio. I'm humbled by that presentation, although I did write it. And Kim, you're doing a fantastic job. I'm just a very simple criminal defense lawyer. And I want to underscore the type of work that Kim is doing in the civil realm in the fight against the injustices that are committed against our communities on a daily basis. I see in the criminal defense world, as Emilio indicated, in the trenches every day, the violence that is committed against our communities. And it is primarily the police, but it is in conjunction with the district attorney's office, or if you're involved with just like a ticket, the city attorneys, and with a wink and a nod from the judges. And you kind of wonder, and again, I've been practicing for 34+ years now, you come to a point in your legal career where you see these kinds of injustices occurring on a day-to-day basis. And after a short period of time, within 5 years or so, you start to get fairly jaded, and you see cops, prosecutors misrepresenting facts, lying, and it is with a wink and a nod approved by the judges, because as so often is the case, you'll have a hearing, say it's a contested evidentiary hearing, and it'll be the cops who get up and testify. And the cops will testify that client did A, B, C. Another cop will get up and say, well, the client did this as well. And if you're lucky enough to have some witnesses to challenge them, besides your own client who can get up and testify, judges are very hesitant to find that the police either lied or misrepresented facts. And the key language that they use in their rulings, most likely against you, is that they find the police officers more credible than any other defense witnesses. So that's a real challenge that we face on a day-to-day basis. Kim noted right at the start of her presentation that these officers appear above the law. And she is so correct in that. And that's what we battle every day in the criminal defense field. The other thing that struck me during Kim's presentation is this whole business of officers who are fired for misconduct in office. Yeah, they'll get fired. And I used to file in a lot of my cases for officers' personnel records. And I can't tell you how many times I had seen officers who had been previously fired, but then reinstated by the police with a 90-day suspension or a 60-day suspension. And for the misconduct, it was incredible. So for instance, without using any names, I once was involved in a case where an officer was fired for filing false reports, loafing on the job, drinking on the job, who was then promoted from a simple, just a line cop, a line duty cop, on-duty cop, to vice squad, where he then started to prey upon people who were charged with prostitution. So he would pick up women that were prostitutes. He would frequently get sexual favors from them. And I heard this in dozens of cases that I had represented. I had alerted the DA's office to this man's troubles, this officer's troubles. And it was years later that I had him in a trial, and I inquired as to his reputation for filing police reports. And I asked him quite blankly, point blank, you're trained to fill out these police reports in a truthful manner, an honest manner. And he says, yeah. And then he opened the door. So I went right after him. You got fired for filing false reports in the past. Isn't that true? Well, that was objected to by the DA's office, even though I had provided them with the notice that I was going after this guy in that fashion. And he was still kept on the force after this. We won that trial, and it was a prostitution case, by the way. Years later, he was arrested and charged with a federal offense for ripping off drug dealers, and the feds found money stashed up. The audacity is incredible, stashed above the ceiling in the Detective Bureau of the Milwaukee Police Department. So above the rule of law, most certainly. So fired officers appealing, that guy, by the way, appealed his firing, was reinstated when then all this other stuff happened. What surprises me and what we really need to be concerned about as citizens, which is clear from all the videos Kim was showing, is the just absolute militarization of our police force. There's really no need for them to be showing up with armored squad cars. I remember the first time I saw one of the armored police vehicles here in Milwaukee, I stopped and took a photograph of it and sent it to everybody I could imagine. Just went, what is this? And what's going on in our society? Well, this is a response. We now know in our society that we're at a real crossroads. People are fed up with the distribution of wealth. We see challenges to having more equalization of pay, bumping up the pay to a minimum wage to $15 an hour. All of that's being met with resistance. And where are the police in this? Well, they're the frontline protectors of wealth and privilege. So it shouldn't surprise us that that's what's happening. Bogus arrests, as Kim also mentioned in her presentation, that's a real problem. And we see that a lot. So you'll get a bogus arrest. You'll never get notice of it. That will eventually turn to a forfeiture, and you'll have a fine to pay. You don't notice that you have the fine to pay, so you'll get pulled over for a minor traffic violation. They run your record and they see a failure to pay a fine or forfeiture, and it'll have a body-only attachment to it for failure to pay the fine or forfeiture, and you'll get arrested. So it just compounds the problem. That's where that becomes a real issue. The other thing that Kim was speaking about, and again, we see on a daily basis in the criminal world, in the trenches, is your client will get a fine of, say, $100 for a possession of marijuana. Well, that's not just the fine itself. There are hidden costs with that, let alone, we won't even get into the whole collateral consequences, the federal consequences for a possession case, but the court costs, assessments, fines, all of those things pile up. So you may walk out of court thinking your fine is only $100 or $50. And when you go to the clerk's office to pay it, it'll be in the $500 to $1,000 range. That happens in the municipal cities frequently. In fact, I just represented a young man for a marijuana offense in one of the other smaller jurisdictions here in Milwaukee County, and it was a $300 forfeiture. When you add in all the court costs, it became over $1,000. So that's a real problem for our minority communities as well. So those are just the kind of problems we see on a daily basis. I'm also dealing with some cases specifically with Wauwatosa and seizures of phones. And I'm getting ready to file some motions asking for supervision over, well, just to back up a second, the person was arrested by Wauwatosa, his phone was seized, he got it back, and evidence that we had alerted the DA's office and the judge that we believed his phone had exculpatory evidence, that has now been erased. So in the process of obtaining a warrant here in Milwaukee County, you have to apply for a warrant to search. That process has to be documented in the clerk's office. So the clerk of Milwaukee County maintains a record of all the applications for a warrant. My preliminary research into that shows no warrant was in fact obtained. No application was obtained, no warrant was issued. And once a warrant is issued and an item is seized, it has to be returned within 5 days, documenting what was actually seized and searched. None of that has occurred in this case. It's directly tied to the Wauwatosa Police Department, and we'll be actively pursuing that. Kim's work is vital. I want to underscore that. And if people can assist her, and I'm sure she's not getting any sort of income from the 150 or so people she's representing, we should be looking to assist her in being able to push this lawsuit forward. And again, I am humbled to be here on this panel, and thank you. And I look forward to any sort of questions.
Thank you too, Ramon. We're going to actually do the questions after we hear from
Sure.
my friend Sedan Smith. And we are getting a ton of questions, and folks are very interested. We're going to be compiling those, and yes, the video will be shared. It's my pleasure now to also introduce Sedan, who, as well as the other two, a lifelong Milwaukeean and community leader who is known for his resilient ability to turn deep personal tragedy into triumph. Working with All of Us or None as youth chapter president and president of the youth chapter Breaking Barriers Mentoring, where he conducts book bag and school resource drives, regularly distributing hundreds of bags. Sedan is also a leader of the People's Revolution who has led the grassroots organizing and activism in Wauwatosa and Milwaukee in the aftermath of these shootings. Sedan, we'd love to hear what you're seeing there and what you can mention about this whole disturbing situation in Wauwatosa.
Okay, first off, I want to say thank you guys for putting this panel together. This is an amazing platform. Of course, this is something that is, been going on far too long. The actions that we've been taking in the People's Revolution is something that was much needed, especially in the city of Wauwatosa. I also want to give special thanks to Mariah Smith, who's actually, one of the other leaders of the People's Revolution, and is actually currently, leading the movement with a number of other protesters. Most of the things that I've seen in Wauwatosa, just as Kim said, are most definitely illegal procedures by the police. People have the right to freedom of speech, which actually gives us the right to freedom of protest. And in Wauwatosa, it's deemed to be an illegal action. And it's something that without the People's Revolution and without Kim Motley, this is something that they would have been able to continue to do. I also want to say that Chief Barry Weber is most definitely as guilty as Joseph Mensah in the case of Jay Anderson, just as well as Antonio Gonzalez and Alvin Cole. These are investigations that were they were supposed to be investigated by other cities, and they were not. As we've been seeing in the recent trial of Jay Anderson, Joseph Mensah and Wauwatosa Police were on the scene and removing weapons and, doing a lot of things that were illegal as far as their actions to follow police protocol. And me, myself, personally, being a part of the People's Revolution and protesting in Wauwatosa, I have had several occurrences with the police where I have been illegally I guess I want to say prosecuted, but a lot of my cases, they're still open. I have tickets that I have gotten from Wauwatosa Police Department. I have a disorderly conduct ticket where I actually was just, I was getting my hair braided on the police stairs, and I ended up getting a ticket in the mail. I really don't understand what it was about my behavior that was disorderly. Again, those tickets are $1,300, $1,500 tickets. I have failure to disperse as well when we did a march in Mayfair Mall. Mayfair Mall has denied, they've denied the access to the video footage of Alvin Cole's death, which happened on their property. That's just something that is, it's absurd. It's something that we should most definitely fight back against, as we have been doing. A lot of the misconduct that came with the curfew was something that it was just like, okay, to my understanding, I feel like they tried to intimidate us by using their power in the law enforcement, and not only just in the law enforcement, but in the judicial branch as well. They've had numerous amount of tickets go out for failure to disperse, numerous amount of tickets go out for, I guess, curfew violations, and in which Kim said, the curfew violations should only be a maximum of $200. And in a lot of those instances, protesters are hit with a fine of $1,300. And these tickets, they come in the mail. There's not nothing, no notification that we're going to be receiving a ticket while on the scene. So the work that Kim is doing is extremely important, and I encourage a lot of people, a lot of the viewers, to make sure that you guys donate. The practices of law, it doesn't come cheap, and especially if they're going to use financial literacy to try to hold us at a standstill, I don't think that's something that we should be sitting down and accepting. I think we should all come together and make sure that we make our voices heard. And if a small donation is all that she's asking to continue to do the work that needs to be done in Wauwatosa, I think it is most definitely important that we answer that call. I've actually been in a protest where a lot of those curfew tickets, when they have occurred, before we were ever told to disperse, or even if we weren't given a warning, they shot off tear gas. A lot of people have been maced. Me, myself, personally, I've been in a situation where tear gas was used. I just feel like, Wauwatosa Police Department is very, very corrupt when it comes to the minority that show up in their backyard. When it comes to Black and brown people entering their community, we're always considered a threat, in which case we have not been, presenting any threat. We have a chant that we say in the People's Revolution. It's when we see the police in riot gear, we say, "Why are you in riot gear? We don't see a riot here." These are chants that's one of the many chants that we use when we see the police using their power as something that they try to rain on the citizens, and I guess try to make us flee in terror. but we don't. We stand on our ground because, of course, we know what we stand up for is right. On behalf of the People's Revolution, we do see that, the misconduct in Wauwatosa Police Department is something that, we won't stand for. We've had many encounters with them where we've actually called on for the Fire and Police Commission to, address these issues as people of the community, people that are, we actually have a Wauwatosa's committee that we have, and they're residents of Tulsa, and they march with us as well. And they try to say that since we're not residents of Tulsa, that we don't have a right to not only just be there, but we don't have a right to protest there. So we show up, and we show up in numbers, and we try to get as many people in the community involved. We invite them out to protest with us as well. We have a lot of people in the community that support us, and I want to thank those people of Wauwatosa for putting their lives on the line, of course, and standing up for what's right. The People's Revolution has been marching for 308 days consecutively now. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's 308 days. I might be a day off, but they've been marching for over 300 days, and the things that you see out there as a protester is unbelievable. To go out there and have it in our minds and in our hearts that we're going to fight for justice and that what we're doing is right, and to be portrayed as these people that are looters, rioters, it's just it's sickening. Not only is it sickening, it's heartbreaking. It puts a bump in the road that you would never be able to imagine going over. And it's not that we're going to stop because of that bump in the road. It's just something that was so unexpected. You would never think that these people would be so heartless, especially after protesting for Alvin Cole's mother, Tracy Cole, and supporting the Alvin Cole family, to find out the next day that she was pulled out of her car and beaten, to find out that Talivia Cole, Alvin Cole's sister, was assaulted by police officers, to find out that they took their phone, her phone, just any and everything that you could imagine unimaginable has happened, and it's been happening on the occurrences of Wauwatosa Police and their involvement to stopping the protesters. And in my eyes, I feel like everything that they're doing is what incites riots. And of course, it doesn't trigger anybody in our protest to be enticed by their behavior, but it's most definitely unprofessional. It's an abuse of power from the police department, Wauwatosa Police Department. It's an abuse of power from the chief, Barry Weber. It's an abuse of power from a lot of the judges that see these cases and just, move them forward as if they deserve prosecution. It's more than you can imagine. Joining the People's Revolution, we started marching after the death of George Floyd. Seeing is that the whole world could see what happened to George Floyd as an unlawful circumstance, and something that was not just a criminal rights issue, but it's more so of a human rights issue. We took to the streets, and we've been marching to make sure that we see a change in the form of the word justice, and not just ask for reform as far as the police accountability goes. New York has just signed a bill to end qualified police immunity. And that's something that I've been trying to fight for since the death of my brother, Seville Smith, who was killed by a Milwaukee police officer August 13th, 2016. My brother was killed by a Milwaukee police officer. And ever since the death of my brother, Seville Smith, I've been fighting to end qualified police immunity. Jonathan Brostoff, state representative, has just announced a bill to, get passed. And hopefully, that bill does get passed to end qualified immunity. Under the qualified immunity, no officer can be found guilty under misconduct as long as they say that their life has been threatened. Can you guys hear me? Okay, so under those circumstances of police accountability and under those circumstances of qualified immunity, the police have always been able to get off on any wrongdoing that they've done, any misconduct from a law officer. They will not see prosecution because of those qualifications of immunity, which is something that most definitely moving forward and seeing justice prevail, we have to start there. With me, that's where I feel like a lot of these cases don't make it to court. It has little to do with the fact that states are paying the families out, because after so long of fighting for justice and not seeing anything happen, a lot of these families are going to turn to the money, and they are going to accept the money because they don't see anything else changing. But on behalf of the People's Revolution, we will most definitely continue to fight for qualified immunity. We will most definitely continue to fight the racial disparities in Wauwatosa, and we will continue to fight until we see Officer Joseph Mensah held accountable for his actions. And not just him, but everyone that has played a role in misconduct under the Wauwatosa Police Department. The People's Revolution is a group of people that are peacefully protesting to make sure that we see change in the form of where we see the word justice applied to us, and not just the form of justice being a word that's given to us under the act of police reform, which is, of course, in a lot of words that they can try to say that, okay, yeah, we will say that we will hold every officer accountable to wearing a body cam, but then we won't add any consequences to whether the officer actually uses the body cams, or there will not be any consequences if the officer's body cam is late to cut on, or any technical difficulties with these body cameras that an officer might imply on his own statement. So on behalf of the People's Revolution, we just want to see justice prevail. We want to see the change in Wauwatosa Police Department to where they don't view minorities as a threat when we come into their backyard, which is actually our backyard as well. Being a citizen of Wisconsin, we should be free to go wherever we please in the state. And we should not be looked at as a threat, but, just human beings at the end of the day. These officers hide behind the quote, I fear for my life in so many cases, that they're deemed feasible after that statement, that officer's word is, held to more accountability than their action. And that's something that we have to put an end to. We have a podcast that is called Revolution Ready. And on Revolution Ready, we air out everything that's going on wrong in Wauwatosa Police Department, the corruption in the system itself. We air out a lot of ways that us as a minority have not stepped up and could step up. We implement ways that people can stay involved in the revolution and also be ready, to be a participant in the revolution, and make sure that, we hold certain elected officials accountable for seeing that seeing that we get justice. And the work that Kim is doing is just so amazing. It is the work that the People's Revolution has been doing since the day it started. It's just been amazing progress. We will continue to fight until we liberate our people from this system that has condemned us to be a threat by association through our skin color. And we will most definitely stand by Kim Motley and whatever endeavors that she has as far as the encounters with the police department and in the judicial system with the judges that don't see her actions as legal. We also have a number of state representatives that march with us. Of course, you guys can look us up. The People's Revolution is on Facebook. Make sure you guys reach out. Join the protest. We post on there every day where we're going to be, where we stand, where we're going to be out there protesting for. And of course, make sure that you guys like the page, share the page, and, do whatever it is that you feel right when it comes to justice prevailing, make sure that you give your input as well. I always say that we want to see a change, but we can't see a change unless we're a part of that change. So I just want to encourage everybody that's listening to get out, use your voice, use the platform of the People's Revolution to elevate your voice, and make sure that you come and participate and give your all 100%, so we can see that justice prevails. And that's pretty much it from me.
That's a big, pretty much it, Sedan. That is fantastic and very inspiring. You're getting a lot of love in the comments section, as have all of you, but it's incredible the support you're getting on Facebook and here in Zoom. And I want to thank, we're not going to close out yet. I'm going to extend it a little more because there's been so much information packed in here. There's a lot of great folks, including the Milwaukee Freedom Fund, who I want to draw attention to, who's raised, probably over $100,000 to help offset the financial costs and the hardships of individuals who are dedicating time, taking off time from their families and friends and work to put an end to these police abuses and white supremacist and racialized violence. We have so many questions, and I feel we can just ask one question maybe for folks to answer, but I will share all the questions when I host this on YouTube so you can visit it and folks can consider these questions. I noticed in the attendees here and on Facebook, we have members of at least 4 different fire and police commissions. We have Milwaukee, we have Wauwatosa, we have Shorewood, we have Glendale, and I don't want to miss this opportunity. I think a lot of us who are the demonstrators, protesters, revolutionaries, or in the legal field understand small ways that we can do these things. But a lot of folks are looking at it from the back end of the system. And at least 2 of them have reached out and they want to know what. And I'm going to ask Attorney Motley Attorney Motley and Sedan to take this. What can members on these quote unquote civilian oversight boards of police departments do to become more effective and remove the entrenched cronyism, nepotism, and corruption that you're seeing here in Wauwatosa?
You want me to go first, Dan? Okay, great. Okay, and thank you again for everybody and Sedan's amazing leadership with the People's Revolution, and even before this 308 days. He's just been an amazing Milwaukee leader, which Milwaukee really needs. I will say with the civilian oversight committee, and thank you to Attorney Valdez. I've known him for a while as a practicing attorney, and thank you to Amelia, who's been an amazing leader as well. I'll say that with civilian-led oversight committees, you have to do stuff. Like you have to hold the police accountable. It's exactly what Sedan said. If police officers are not putting on your body cams, just wearing it is not enough. If they're not turning it on and they're supposed to turn it on, there needs to be actual consequences for that, actual consequences. And so I think that's something that the Civilian Oversight Board can do, is demand accountability, demand that there's consequences for officers not doing their basic job. And that's something that I have not seen, frankly, with the Fire and Police Commission. They seem as though they're scared of the Wauwatosa Police Department when they're actually supposed to be the oversight to them. And that's just generally what I think they can do.
That's excellent. Sedan or Ramon, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I want to add that you guys can call up to local city officials as well and make sure that they hold police accountable as well. As far as the civilians on the Fire and Police Commission goes, those jobs are volunteer jobs and they can be, demoted. They can lose their job. But it's going to take the act of the citizens to say that, yes, we have protesters here. And even though it's somewhat of a disturbance, to have to fight for your race is the biggest disturbance in our lives, especially, being born into this. This is not something that we wanted to do. This is something that we have to do. And it's hard for us. And without the accountability of the people who are supposed to hold the police accountable through the words of the citizens, then we won't get anywhere. So we have to appoint people in these positions that are going to make sure that we're not only heard, but that they add action to our words. Of course, the police chokehold is something that is huge as well. They don't want to put a ban on it, and then when they do put a ban on it, there's stipulations in there that say that if an officer is threatened for their life, that they can choke someone to death. If someone is gasping for air, there is no threat to your life. If this person can barely breathe, we have to make sure that we cut every corner to beat them at their own game. We have to add the stipulations in to where there aren't any that don't go in our favor. There aren't any opinions that they can give that will beat the fact at hand. So I just want to, like Kim said, encourage everybody to, use your voices and become the change that you want to see.
I would just add that these oversight committees need to recognize that there is a systemic problem within the police force. They try to deal with it on an individual basis, but there's a systemic problem, and they have to recognize that. And that's when you're going to start to see some of the changes. But until that acknowledgement occurs, we're going to continually have these kinds of problems. And that's the real issue.
Thank you, my friends. And for those not able to read the chat here, these are open meetings. These are supposed to be transparent. We encourage all of you to attend and get involved in your local fire commission, fire and police commission, police and fire commission, whatever it's called in your individual municipality. One, so that you can root out whatever corruption may be occurring. Two, so that you can hold them accountable for the things that Sedan and Kimberley and Ramon have illustrated. And three, so that if there isn't anything right now popping in your neighborhood, you can hopefully keep it that way by being vigilant. I want to let you know that the links that Sedan and Kimberley and Ramon have mentioned have been cut and pasted in the side. I encourage you to follow the People's Revolution, follow and support Kimberley Motley at the Justness Project, or order a copy of her book by emailing her at the email links we've shared in the side. To read the demands of the People's Revolution, to, if you're ever in need, look up Ramon Valdez or Kimberley Motley, who are extraordinary attorneys. Three people here are also my friends. And I want to encourage you, if you like what's happening with the National Lawyers Guild, or you're interested in the Milwaukee Turners, please find us on Facebook or email the MilwaukeeNLG@gmail to find out our next meeting. I want to pause for a minute. I want to draw attention to Seville Smith, to Alvin Cole, to Jay Anderson, to Antonio Gonzalez, to George Floyd, and know that we need to honor them. We need to say their names. We need not let them be forgotten. We need to make sure that these types of things don't happen to our brothers and sisters in the future. And in addition to encouraging you to take action in the ways that you've heard and we've shared in the side, I'd like to close with a quote that Stevie Wonder, a multi-Grammy Award winner and American national treasure, said just yesterday on Facebook. Now do you see the reality between Black people and the police, where there is fear and a collective need to record encounters? It was George Floyd's fault that they had to kill him. This is blaming the victim. That is abuse. My question is, will reliving this trauma in 2021 in the United States of America finally bring justice or not? Obviously, all of us here say not. We don't want it to, and we're here to do that work. I bid you all a good afternoon. Please, please take care of one another. This will be shared later on Facebook and on YouTube. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And thank you so much for spending time with us, Kimberley, Ramon, and Sedan.
Thank you, Emilio. Thank you.
Thank you, Emilio.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye, friends.